Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Yes, this is being recorded. It's being essentially being live streamed to our YouTube channel right now, so you'll be able to see it even right now for anyone that's interested. Okay, so before we get started, I'll put the link to our Medical Innovations Challenge this year, which is the topic for our research symposium. I'll put it in the chat. If you want to follow along with me, that's probably a good idea. So that way you can read along with me. And if you have questions, I'm going to have some time dedicated at the end of my little spiel today to answer all the questions that you have. And yeah, that's pretty much it. While I'm speaking, if you can keep your questions to the chat, that would be great. But if you want to like raise your hand and ask a question after I'm done, that's totally fine. But I'll go ahead and start sharing with you our prompt. So just some brief information about our Medical Innovations Challenge in general. It's just an opportunity for you to get to pick a topic that's interesting to you in science, in healthcare, and medicine, and then explore that further. So in previous years, people have chosen viruses or cancer or cardiovascular disease. So there are a lot of different challenges that face our world in science and healthcare. So the only issue we could see really with that is that there are too many issues to pick from. But what we ask you to do is to pick one issue that's really exciting to you, not because it's a cool issue, but because you find it fascinating. And then you take that issue, you do a bunch of research on it, and then you develop your own solution to combat that issue. So for example, if you pick a topic about a genetic disease, then you find some way to change gene expression to alleviate the symptoms of that disease or condition. So that's a brief overview of what the symposium is. So you pick a problem, you develop your own solution, you do lots of research, you make sure that your solution is well referenced. So we are, of course, not expecting you to go out into a lab and do all of this research because that's not possible. You're going to be speaking about all of your results hypothetically. So we expect that because we do this, we'll see this kind of thing, but you want it to be as well referenced as possible. You ideally should be using scientific articles from like the Journal of Biology or Journal of Neurology or something like that. So articles that are done by researchers, they're peer reviewed. Lots of scientists have worked on them for many years, so they're more reliable. You want to make sure your sources are good. And although I feel like this is a given, I want to state right now, please make sure you reference things properly. We've gotten submissions in the past where people have just copied and pasted directly from websites, and that's an immediate no, because you can't do that. You have to create your own solution. Even if you're pulling information from other websites and other resources, which you should be doing, you have to write it in your own words and explain it on your own. So please don't copy paste anything directly, and please don't use AI to generate any ideas or to write essentially the submission for you. So okay, so now I'll go into the prompt itself. So essentially it just talks about how there are different global health challenges that threaten the lives of a ton of people around the world. We talk about a few like climate change, antibiotic resistance, cardiovascular disease, neurological disease. You do not have to pick something that's on this list. You can pick something else. That's totally okay. We just give you these lists as kind of a jumping point so you know where to get started. So the prompt is essentially to pick one of these and then develop a solution. And we've even given you some examples of what solutions might look like. So because the nature of the prompt is pretty broad, we are offering a lot of help throughout the way to help you get started, help you find good resources, and help you develop your problem. So when you fill out the Research Symposium registration form, which is linked in my message on Slack, you'll see that one of the questions asks you whether or not you want a mentor. So if you're filling out that form and you want a research mentor, you can check that box so we know to find one for you or assign you one. And then another thing is you can do this individually or you can do it in groups. I think it's a good idea to try and do it in groups, even with people that have done the summer program, because it's a nice way to make the summer program even more interactive, meet new people, work with them. It's only a couple of weeks, so It's not too big of a time commitment. But if you want to work individually, that's also totally okay. And if you want to work in groups with other people that are not in the program, that's also okay. So if you have friends at school that are interested in doing this and they want to participate, that's totally fine. You just have to message us and ask for permission. Just give us their email, their school email, and what school they're attending, and it'll most likely be fine. And I would recommend having your groups be no more than like 4 or 5 people. So your solutions have to be pretty well thought out. We want to know that you've thought about this idea from the beginning to the end. So how you would make it, how you would create your solution, how you would go about finding it, how would it be made, and then how would you actually implement it? If your solution is something like a vaccine that would cost money, where are you going to get the money from? How are you going to implement this globally? Are you going to start small and then go bigger? Those are some things that you need to think about. And then also reference past solutions. So, for example, if you're taking an old vaccine, but you're making it new for this disease, you can reference some research from that old vaccine to talk about how effective that was, where the money was pulled for that, etc. So you don't have to pull everything, you don't have to create everything, but you do have to think about stuff like that and think about whether or not this would be affordable and actually practical. So another key thing is it has to be something that's new. So you can't just present research on a topic or a solution that's already been done before. If you take something that's already been done before and you change it, you make it new, you apply it to something else, that's fine, but you can't just take something that's already been done. And then we want to make sure you talk about whether or not this is going to be feasible. So in your presentation, you should address whether or not you think this is good in the long term. Are there any limitations? Are there any social or ethical issues? And what would you do if those things actually happened? So you don't have to answer all of the questions we have here. These are mostly just here as thought-provoking questions to get you to think critically about your project. And then all of the important links are here. So someone asks in the chat, where do we send our research? So you look at this next steps part of this document here. At the bottom, it details where the submissions are essentially due. So the submissions are due on August 16th, which is a Friday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The research symposium itself is happening Saturday, August 17th at 9 a.m. So a couple days before the actual symposium, we're going to send out a Google form. And if you're interested in presenting your research at the symposium live on Zoom, then you can fill out that form. And then first come, first served. So if you fill out the form first, then you get the first speaking slot. Or if you have any preferences, you can indicate that as well. And then we'll create that list and send it out to you. And then when the day comes on Saturday, August 17th, we will essentially announce all of you in order, and then you can go ahead, present your solution. We might ask you a couple questions, and then after a couple days, we'll release our speaking awards. So we'll give out a few speaking awards to the best presentations that we see in our research symposium this year. So there are a couple of different formats that your final submission can take place in. So it could be a presentation or a slideshow, which is what most students tend to do. You could do a slideshow and then also speak over it in a pre-recorded video. That's also fine. You can do just a Google document or a Word document. You can do some kind of brochure like visuals and graphics. But either way, try to create something that a person that doesn't even know that much about science would be able to follow along. So the more thorough it is and the more detailed it is, the easier it will be to understand. That doesn't mean throw 3 million words onto your submission because that makes it more difficult, but be thorough. Don't just submit a slideshow with like 3 words per slide because that's not going to be easy for us to understand. So that's essentially it for that. A couple of other things before I go into some of our sample submissions from previous years. So if you're interested in working in a group, but you don't have team members and you want help from us, I'm going to be posting a message on Slack in our Research Symposium channel, which hopefully you've joined at this point. And I'll just ask you to respond to it. If you're interested in working in a group, I'll just ask you to kind of write down what topic you're interested in, or if you don't have a topic, you can say that as well. And then we'll be pairing you in groups. But if you don't need help, you're more than welcome to just get started on your own. So that's essentially it for the prompt. Does anyone have questions about the prompt before I move into the rubric? So how we actually grade everything. Abriel?
Oh, hi. Sorry. I know that August 17th I have a retreat to do at 9 a.m. It will it last like long or because I could try like to squish it in and like present.
Yeah, so a couple things. So first, it's not required to present your submission live during the research symposium. That's only if you want to be eligible for speaking awards. So second, if you're still interested, it'll probably be at least a couple of hours. So you can try to attend and we can fit you in at the end. But if you're not able to attend, it's not going to hurt your submission score in any way. You just won't be eligible for the live speaking awards.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Amir?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I wanted to do a research which the topic is exploring the psychological impact of childhood cancer survivorship. But it's a topic that has a it's a psychological topic, but with a scientific approach. Because I want to concentrate on how the nervous system is like the chemotherapy has a lot of impact on children who survive cancer. So do you think it's eligible for the research?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything in the fields of science, psychology, healthcare, medicine are totally okay, which includes how these diseases affect the patients that have them. So that's totally okay.
Okay, so thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, I see some questions in the chat. So you send your research, you submit it, so you email it to us on Friday, August 16th at info@medicinepower.org, and you have to list the members of your group that participated and link your submission there, so your slideshow or your Google Doc or whatever. And that's how you send it in. What are the prompts? So there's just one prompt, pick a problem, design a solution, and that's what this entire document is for. Someone asks, how much time is each group allotted during the presentation? So we give you, I think, 7 or 8 minutes max, and then 2 minutes for questions, just to make sure we have enough time for everyone. If we give a presentation with speaking but not live speaking, will you still be eligible for the speaking award? Yes, but your presentations will be presented last to prioritize people that are attending live. So it'll still be presented during the symposium, but it'll be presented at the end. Someone else asks, can we submit before August 16th? Yes, you're absolutely more than welcome to submit before August 16th. We'd recommend that you submit at least a day in advance. And yeah, that's totally fine. Can you participate with an old project or old research? So you can participate using research based off of a project you've already done, but you can't submit something that you've already done completely before. So you can't just copy and paste a project that you've already done or a research submission that you've already done. It can be based off of that. It can be kind of similar, but it cannot be exactly the same. And then the last question I have is how many pages are you required to write? There's no page limit, there's no word limit because we want to give you creative freedom to design your ideas however you see fit. But I'm going to show you some submissions from previous years and then you can kind of gauge based off of that. And yes, you can also request a slot to be first or last. We will address those in a first come, first serve basis. Okay. So this is our rubric. I'll put a link to that in the chat as well. These links are all on Slack, and this rubric is also in the document as well. So this is how your submissions are graded, your actual submissions, not the speaking or the actual symposium itself, but your project, what you actually chose to do for your research. So there are a couple different categories. So development and strategic aspect. Did you directly address a real world problem in the medical or STEM related field? And did you really give it a detailed and well thought out description and explanation? Creativity and visuals. Did you not have any pictures there? That would put you on the lower end of the scale. Or did you have images and elements that made it more exciting to look at visually? Was it organized and creative? And did the flow make sense? That would give you another 10 points. And then our 20-point categories are our research method and real world applications. So the research method is essentially your solution. So have you done a lot of research? is the research, incorporated into your reasoning? Is your solution new, but also based in previous things that other people have done? And then the last category is real world applications. So is it realistic? Is it something that we could actually see being implemented within the next couple of years or a decade? And then the last thing is just referencing grammar, spelling, and composition or organization. So this is also important. I know it's only 10 points, but please make sure you're spell checking everything. You're making sure you're not plagiarizing. Use as many references as you can. I would say 10 is a good minimum for the amount of references you should have. And then just cite wherever you can. Wherever you're writing down information that didn't come directly from your brain, add a citation there. That's the way I would recommend it. Someone asked, do we submit a research paper or a presentation? It can be either of those. How will the mentors help us with the research? So it depends. So each group will be assigned a mentor and they'll be there to help out with your specific needs. So if you need help coming up with an idea, that's what they'll help you with. If you need help making your project more aesthetic, that's what they're going to help with. They help you based on what your needs are. Is there a specific way you want things referenced, like style? Great question. APA format would be fantastic. So we're assuming that you're using scientific journals. So cite everything in APA. And then I'll include a guide to that as well later on, so if you haven't cited things in APA. For the references for links, is there a certain citation format? Yeah, APA, I just answered that. And then if you submit a research paper, how will it be presented? So if you submit something in the form of like a Word document to us, then it's up to you how you want to present it. I would recommend that even if you submit a Word document, that you at least make a brief presentation for the actual symposium, so that way people can follow along better, as opposed to just like reading along a document with you. You can, base everything mostly off of your document, but throw together a little presentation to make things more visually exciting. And then, yes, I'll send a link out to APA formatting for those of you that haven't heard about it before, so no worries. It's just a referencing style for scientific links, essentially. And then who will the mentors be? So the mentors will all, at baseline, be a student that has completed research before, either in a high school, college, or postgraduate level. So we won't have mentors that are professors, but they're going to be students with at least a couple years of research experience, so they'll be able to help you out pretty well. And you'll get your mentors probably by the beginning of next week, because our registration form isn't due until Saturday. Okay, another question. If we do a doc for our research symposium and a PowerPoint for presentation, should we submit both through the email? You only have to really submit your research document, and then if you do your PowerPoint presentation for the actual date of symposium, you can still email it to us, but it won't be due Friday, August 16th. You can just submit it on Saturday whenever you're done. This is assuming that, people work on it last minute and make some changes before they actually end up submitting it. So yeah, those are fine. Okay, cool. Someone else asks, can we make a presentation and add a little video of ourselves explaining our problem with detail? Absolutely. So if you use a Google Slides, the only drawback to that is you can add a ton of detail to it, but then it makes it not super pretty to look at, or you can not have a lot of detail, but then we don't understand what's going on. So I would recommend that if you're submitting a presentation, that you record a little video of yourselves anyways, explaining over your problem with detail. And when you present that during the symposium, if you choose to, we'll factor that into your actual submission. So let's say you only have a couple sentences on your slideshow about the previous research that's been done, but then during the actual symposium, you take 5 minutes to explain all this research, you show us diagrams, etc. We'll count that as part of your submission and give you the points for that. And can you use Canva? Yes, you're welcome to use literally any platform that you would like to. We don't restrict you to anything, so whatever you want to use is good with us. Okay, cool. I'm gonna show you some of our sample submissions now. Okay. So these are sample submissions from our research symposium from 2021. Our prompt was different then because we essentially created a fake virus and then asked students to come up with their own solution. So these aren't 100% applicable to you, but they are sample submissions. And for our research symposium from last year, which was pretty much the same prompt as this year, we recorded the whole thing and uploaded it to our YouTube channel. So if you just go to our YouTube channel and then find the video from last August entitled Research Symposium, you can watch all of the presentations and see what all of the students did. So there are a ton of examples there. And then last question, how should we cite it if you're making an app? See, I mean, you can just cite all of the research that went into making the app, because even if you're making an app, you need research to go into the actual process of making the app. So just cite whatever you use to make it. And then you can attach it as a separate document, since you probably wouldn't want to put your references in the app itself. Okay, I'm going to show you some of our sample submissions. So these were submissions from students. Again, they were solving this fake pandemic that we created for them. So they addressed the problem. They talked about what their solution would be. So in this case, it was a public health solution. And then they talked about how they would go about it. So first they would, monitor the situation. Then they would figure out, what are the pros and cons of doing this. Then they had a second part of their presentation that would help them break this chain of infection, because this was an infectious disease. They kept talking about that. I would like to make a note that, yes, this was a great presentation, but there's a lot of text on this page and throughout the presentation, and it's really small, and the elements don't 100% go along exactly with the theme. So just be mindful of things like that. So they talk about that. They talk about the pros and cons of all the different parts of their solution. So this group's solution was multifaceted. It had a couple different parts. There's more parts here, pros and cons, and then they had their work cited. So they addressed most of the elements that we talked about. Okay, I'll show you another one. So this was another group that did our research symposium. Same prompt, but they had a different solution. So they first take you through their team. This is totally fine. If you want to do like a little meet our team slide, that's totally okay. We like getting to know you. So if you want to do this, absolutely feel free to. Table of contents, it's nice. It helps keep things organized so we know what's coming next. They talk about the problem, some stats about the problem to, tell you why it's important that we're coming up with the solution in the first place, what people have done in the past, and then what they're going to do in the future. So I'd like to point out that while, yes, this is a great presentation, there are no citations here, no in-text citations. So if you are talking about vaccines that have been done before, talking about things that have been done before, you do still have to cite it on this actual presentation here. You can use the numbering system so you don't have to write out big citations every time, but you still have to do that. Then they talk about their solution. This is more about the solution. What are they going to do? What's the timeline? We're going to bring it into clinical trials. So clinical trials are where they try it out first in little areas and monitor patients. If it works, then they bring it more mainstream. What's the cost? So they were thinking about the social and the economical burden of their actual solution. How much is it going to be? Ethical dilemmas, and then pros and cons, what they're hoping to achieve, and then all of their sources were here. So this is another really good presentation. And then I'll show you kind of a different format of a submission. So this group chose to write a research journal article style submission. So yes, they were still doing everything that we asked them to do. They were talking about the problem, coming up with their own solution, but they just did it in a different format. So you can see here that they still have all of the necessary components. So they have the rationale. Why is it even important that we're doing this in the first place? Then they talk about their solution. They talk about the chemical structure of the solution and why it would be important to do this. Then they also talk about the implications of this solution in developing countries. They talk about group distribution. They have sample fake data. And then they have a discussion and conclusion and a bunch of references here. So this is also a good solution, just in a different format. Okay, so those were all of the sample submissions I wanted to show all of you today. Hopefully that kind of helps give you an idea of what our participants were up to. And if I am remembering correctly, I think at least this submission and this submission received awards from our overall research symposium. So when you submit your actual project, you'll be automatically considered for a couple of different award categories, which we'll be announcing later. So just keep your eyes posted for that. Okay, I'm gonna go through, and if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand. But yeah, any questions about anything related to the research symposium now, feel free to ask them. Someone asked, is it okay to only submit a presentation without research paper, or will it affect the certificate? That's totally fine. You don't have to have a research paper. It's not required. Can we post the sample slides? Yeah, we can share this with you. And then how do you find teammates for the research? We'll be helping you do that as well. So just keep checking Slack. I'll be posting a message asking people that need groups to respond to the message, and then we'll be pairing you up. Typically in like groups of 3 to 4. But I think that was everything I wanted to share. Okay. Any more questions from people in the chat or people wanting to raise their hands? Samita?
Is it okay if we go on the chat and then ask people to DM us if they're interested for group?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can post in not the announcements channel, but in any of the other channels and just ask people to reach out to you if they're interested. Yeah, that's totally fine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good questions. Do you have to do it in a group or can you do it individually? You can definitely do it individually. We're not going to require that you work with other people. Although it's a good thing, but you don't have to. Does it mean it's not necessary to submit anything through email? I mean, you do have to submit your final project to us through email, but that's it. Is it possible to do a speech but not be posted on YouTube for privacy to be selected for a reward? So message me on Slack, send me a DM, and we can talk about this. So that way we can, because we do want to live stream the symposium to our YouTube, but we also want to be respectful of people that don't want to be on our YouTube channel. So message me and we'll come up with a solution that, protects your privacy. What are the categories you can work on? There are a bunch of different types of diseases. So you can honestly pick anything. The types of awards you mentioned, will they be sent on Slack or during this meeting? Yeah, they'll be sent out in either after this meeting or tomorrow. We're just finalizing some of the categories. What if we don't have special solutions? That's what your mentors are there for. That's what we're there for. If you need help coming up with a solution that hasn't been done before, definitely feel free to ask us. The more you read up on these different diseases or problems, and the more you figure out what people have already done, it crosses things off your list because now at least you know if this has already been done, then it's not something you can do. And that kind of narrows your list down and lets you explore other things. And then for the citations, so when you're writing down any information on a slide so I'll type it in the chat because I feel like it's easier to show it like this. So let's say, for example, you wrote down a fact in your slideshow and it was that the COVID-19 pandemic took nearly 50 million lives in the US. And then what I'm putting after is a citation. So let's just say the website that I got this from was the US Board of Health. And then they published this in 2022. That's what an in-text citation looks like. So it's just parentheses after the end of your fact or whatever you've posted there or written down, and then it just shows us where you got that information from. Essentially, that's all citing is. It's just showing us where you got the information of and doing it properly. You don't have to test out your ideas at all. Yeah, because the time frame is super tight and a lot of these projects would potentially require a lot of money. So don't actually do this. You just have to develop the solution. Make it a really well-developed solution so someone could actually take it potentially and do it, but you don't have to do it yourself. And can you do a prompt about STEM and not medicine? Absolutely. Is it okay if you have a slide with all the citations? I mean, you should have a slide at the end of your presentation that has all of the sources that you used throughout your research submission, but in the actual slides themselves, you should also have it there. Like they shouldn't just all be at the end. And yes, the recording of this video will be shared. What do you mean by STEM? So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. So just any problem there, that's also fine. Ideally, it would somehow tie into human health, but if it doesn't, that's okay. We're not gonna penalize you for it. Okay, any other questions? I think I saw some hands raised, but I don't see them anymore. You can put them in the chat too if you want. Hopefully things make a little bit more sense now. I think I've gotten all of the questions that I've seen so far. So if you don't have any other questions, you're more than welcome to head out. Hopefully this was helpful and set you on the right path to coming up with your own solution. But we're very excited to see what all of you work on. We're always very impressed by all the submissions year after year. So yeah, good luck everyone, and we'll be there to help you along the way. I'll go ahead and stop recording, and then